In this episode, In this episode, Bradley finally gets a chance to... In this episode, Bradley finally gets a chance to bust out his solid snake impression. It's the latest episode... In this episode, Bradley finally gets a chance to bust out his solid snake impression. It's another high-quality episode of Written... Welcome to Written Off, a podcast about two idiots who have been written off talking about movies that have also been written off. And yes, I'm your host, Bradley Freeman. How's your mom doing? Is she okay? That thing that she has to get taken care of, did you remind her about it? Because you know, if you don't remind her about it, I mean, what? Your sister's going to take care of it? With me, as always, is my wonderful co-host, Mark. How are you doing today, Mark?
Yeah, good. I was just reading that Shannon Doherty obviously passed away not long ago. She apparently made a list of people she didn't want to come to her funeral because they hadn't bothered with her while she was still alive. That's brilliant. Yeah, don't let her in. Don't let him in. They weren't there for me while I was alive. I don't want them leeching off my death. I think that's perfect. I think that's so often.
Brilliant. Is it Behind the Bastards? It's the episode featuring about John Landis. Yes, the nightmare that went on with the Twilight Zone movie. I want to talk about someone leeching off not one, but three funerals.
Yeah.
Listen to those episodes because, Jesus, what a cunt. What have you been watching recently to start us off on a slightly more sugar-coated tact?
After I rewatched Pocahontas, we actually watched Tangled straight after it. It's a fun way of doing that story. I think the balance is really good. It's not perfect. It's definitely got Shrek vibes, which I don't know. Did it need them? I understand commercially why it did it. But all in all, I think it's definitely better than Frozen, which obviously, as we both know, was massive in Japan and will always stick with me because it was hitting just as we got to Japan. But yeah, it's not a film I'd watch every day, but it's definitely a film I'd put on. It's well written.
For those of you who don't know, living in Japan during the Frozen times, and I don't mean the Ice Age, I don't mean the franchise Ice Age, I mean the Frozen film, it detonated and everyone was seeing it. Everyone was talking about it. Merchandise was available at every single convenience store. People wearing t-shirts. Karaoke is kind of ubiquitous in Japan. And for at least 2 years, every time I went to a karaoke joint and I'd walk down those hallways with the karaoke rooms on either side, 9 times out of 10, someone was blasting out Elsa's big song and you couldn't escape it.
That phenomenon, especially among women, and obviously that theme of that song obviously really resonated with people there. And I had a lot of discussions with women about it, why it resonated so much with them. You know, as a culture, it's a difficult thing to do. Grudges or having to maintain a history of everything that's ever happened between you and another person and how that's going to affect everything going forward. I can see why it resonated with them. I just don't think it's a brilliant film. I mean, it's better than Pocahontas, obviously, but I don't think it's a brilliant film.
I got really, really drunk and I went to what do you call those Rocky Horror Picture Show kind of live, what do you call them? Cinema events where everyone dresses up and they watch the movie and they sing along to it. Cinema event? Does that make sense? Whatever the fuck you call them. Everyone in the cinema basically dressed up as either a nun, cop, or a blues brother or a blues sister. And we all watched the movie drinking way too much tequila. And that movie, I'm sorry to bring up John Landis twice in one podcast. But that movie, it is a unique film. What I like about it is it's so grimy and dirty and gritty. You know, like it's starting off in the prison. There's not an ounce of schmaltz or beautification or anything. It's just, oh, this is not a good place to be. And then going through the streets and the Bluesmobile and even all the joints that Jake and Elle would go to, they're all run down as shit and everyone looks like they're on meth. It's a funny comparison to compare that and then Blues Brothers 2000, which has all the beautification and schmaltz. It is a unique piece of cinema, that movie.
I only saw it sitting on the living room floor of my friend's house, and his dad was obsessed with America. So they would go as often as they could. And he loved Americana, and he had the hat and the glasses and all that. I didn't get it. And I haven't seen it for a long time. Now I'm married to American. It might feel very different. But at the time, I just didn't get it. A lot of those Saturday Night Live, it's come out Saturday Night Live and we'd never had it. Like, even Wayne's World. I mean, I liked Wayne's World. I didn't know it had come from anything. I didn't know that those performers had been doing that shtick. It was effectively the Mr. Bean movie. I didn't know that at the time. Some of it lands and some of it doesn't. I think if it expects you to have already seen the characters in Saturday Night Live, then it's going to be written in a different way. If it's like, right, we're just going to write this story about these characters because the characters are good, then I think it works better.
For this episode, we're leaving no stones, controversial or otherwise, unturned because, yes, friend, we're looking at a toughie. We're turning our bearded, middle-aged gaze in a non-sexual manner toward a film from our youth. It is 1995's Disney's Pocahontas, directed by Mike Gabriel, Eric Goldberg, and written by Carl Binder, Susanna Grant, and Philip Lazebnik.
I've got really conflicted feelings about this movie. I loved this movie when I saw it when I was, I think I was 12-ish when this movie hit, even though, yes, I understand that Pocahontas is an animated character. I had a hell of a crush on her.
Not surprising.
But the music and everything, and this is coming off Aladdin and Lion King, and just to be a kid during the Disney Renaissance was an amazing time. And it's like kids today get excited for the next Marvel movie trailer, and they see these trailers and they go, oh my God. That was what it was like for kids in the Disney Renaissance. These movies were seismic, and Pocahontas was another one.
I went to Florida in 1993, and we actually saw them animating Lion King at whatever it was. I think it was MGM. Was that what it was called at the time? The third, not Epcot, the other one. Yeah, so you could go and you could see the animators. There'd be a bit like in Jurassic Park where they can see them, making the diamond. It was almost exactly the same, and you could go. And I clearly remember them doing the lion shape and being really, really excited. And then I don't think I even saw it at the cinema, funnily enough, when it came out. But as you say, and it was year after year after year, you forget. It was a massive thing for anyone our age.
So that being said, a lot of mixed feelings about this film and a lot of mixed intentions regarding this film. So we're going to get into this. The basic summary of the film: a bunch of colonizers arrive in America, and do they think of asking the local indigenous tribe, hey, do you mind if we set up shop here? No, what they do is they just start to dig for quote unquote mythical gold and just take the land for themselves, which I suppose in that part is kind of historically accurate. Meanwhile, you've got free spirit, smart thinking Pocahontas and her tribe, and they have to react to a whole bunch of colonizers, and it all gets messy from there. But also you've got animal sidekicks, and you've got Alan Menken and Steven Schwartz bringing up the awesome soundtrack. Oh, and a talking tree. Yes, of course.
Maybe talk later about Moana and how Moana is kind of a remake of this, but just strip out the romance. We'll have a woman, or a young girl in that case, which maybe Pocahontas should have been in this, but we'll have a young girl who is obviously very attached to the community, but wants something else, wants something more in quotation marks. But you've just taken out that romance, and you've taken out the comedy colonizers. I mean, some of them are. The Billy Connolly's playing he's the realistic colonizer, isn't he? He's the straight man.
Any movie, good or bad, you put Billy in your movie, instant thumbs up from me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, apart from Hobbit, obviously.
Sorry, even Hobbit. Yep, it's just like, but that's also the Kiwi in me saying like, oh, I can't.
Anyway, we won't go into that. Yeah, anyway, so your summary is good, yes.
Let's start off positively. As always, this show is a fountain of positivity. What does work in this movie, actually? I love setting you up for that, because there's this inevitable pause where I see your face on the monitor as you genuinely rack your brains.
I think it writes, again, I said native last time as well. I think it writes the natives pretty well. There isn't maybe as much time with them as I would like, but they're honorable. As you know, my wife has an issue with how they portray the father, but I feel it gets it better than it had any right to in 1995. I like the fact there's a best friend character. She's underwritten, unfortunately. That character there, I quite like. The beats are quite good. I would say the rhythm of the film is not bad. It feels about as long as it needs to be. And it does show attraction quite well. I don't like the Mel Gibson character particularly, but that moment of attraction and the time they spent with each other, you know, it's like there's the Anakin Padme vibes a little bit, but written 1,000 times better than that. And I think odd for a kids movie to have it so foregrounded, but that was quite effective and quite affecting, the way she stalks him for 20 minutes, you know, as you do. I think that's very realistic from my experience. I'm going to have to ask you straight up, why were you so attached to it? Why did it resonate with you, I wonder? Is it the romance?
There are two goalposts of films that kind of formed preteen Brad's outlook on love. The first one was The Karate Kid Part 2, and the second one was this film. And watching both films when I was younger, seeing these gestures of romance, seeing what a man, quote unquote, should do for a woman, and seeing how she responds, and seeing how sweet and naive and, yeah, I suppose slightly harmful they both were in some ways. It fortunately and unfortunately kind of formed how I thought love was at a young age. So for me, this film it's wrapped up all in there with that emotion of me being a young white kid, and in both cases, seeing two white male characters fall in love with women of color, women of different cultures, and just thinking like, oh, okay, so that is love. That is how it's done. That is a thing. That is how you feel. And while, of course, later on I had some real growing up to do, I think both films actually are very romantic and very sweet and kinda well-meaning. I mean, The Karate Kid Part 2 does its best for the time to kind of have living, breathing Japanese characters who have wants and needs and drive the story. Pocahontas, they're the same thing. They really tried.
I think in terms of a movie, especially one that has to work for children and adults, a Disney movie in the 90s, that scene where he kind of launches out of the waterfall and they see each other, no dialogue, and it's quiet. Is it a cliche or is it a cheat to use the wind to kind of tell you that something magical is going on? Yes, but hey, it works.
And what I think the script does quite well is there's a lot of silence. It doesn't go heavy on the dialogue between those two. Yeah, I would agree with you. You know, I'm not particularly into that kind of film, but yeah, it does kind of sweep you away. I can see that.
The movie is gorgeously animated. I'm a huge fan of traditional animation, and this movie is sumptuous. Poses and the animation and the body language, the way they animate her hair. Oh, it's amazing. So yeah, visually getting across the image of these characters are attracted to each other in some, you know, maybe mystical or spiritual way, but also the recent rewatch preparing for this podcast. There are some things that still work for me today. This was the very first Disney animated movie to base it all around an adult female and a woman of color. That's pretty impressive, isn't the word, but that's notable. It's like, okay, this is good. This is good. And it's great having the title character is Pocahontas. I would argue, we'll talk about it later on, there's some things that could have changed to make sure that she is the lead character, but it's great to have her fully be the lead of the movie. It was the very first Disney movie to be based on a real person, which, spoilers, I think was the wrong choice. But hey, if you're a fan of Ghibli movies, this is quasi-Ghibli in that it's got a real environmental message. I wouldn't say it's as blatant as, say, Fern Gully. You got to save the rainforest, kids, and listen to awesome music at the same time. And it's nice to watch a Disney film from way back when that deals with female agency so well. Wow, so well. But like, it's throughout the film, she has her own agency. She has her own empathy, and she does push the story forward, and she makes choices largely for herself. So these are all good things that I thought, yay. Good on you. Well done. Small wins in perhaps a bucket of bad choices and missteps.
Everyone always makes the Lion King is Hamlet. This is Romeo and Juliet. It's 100% Romeo and Juliet. And I think doing that, it's just I mean, we're 30 years on, and our discussion about colonialism and portrayal of gender and race and what else has moved on so much. And I can see, it's funny, I didn't do much background reading on purpose, but I read what Siskel was impressed with its portrayal of Native people. And I think, especially if you ever go back and watch, any John Wayne film, it's absolutely horrendous. So yeah, I can imagine in 95, people would have gone, oh, okay. So, they're actually talking to each other, and we're getting to see the family dynamics and okay. So yeah, you've got to give it a bit of credit. But as I said, tacking it, using that Romeo and Juliet, that first meeting, as I said earlier, not overwritten at all, not a lot of dialogue, a bit like in, Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet. Baz Luhrmann does romance very well. Again, I've got issues with him, but he does that very well. And it does capture that. I think that's fair. But as you said, and we should talk about it, why the need to make it a real character? Why the need to put they must have realized that, swimming in colonial waters was not going to age well. You said that when we talked about it before, they were gunning for it. They were like, right, we want to make it historical. Why?
Studio chairman at the time, Jeffrey Katzenberg, he saw the film in progress, Beauty and the Beast, which was a huge success for the studio, got that Academy Award nomination for Best Picture. He took one look at Pocahontas and he said, well, let's do it again. Let's make this a quote unquote sweeping romantic epic. The co-directors, some of the animators, some of the story team throughout the film, they originally thought it was going to be a lot more comedic, like Aladdin in some places. But at every step of the way, they got pushed more and more and more into romance and more and more into this should be something that should win an Academy Award. Katzenberg, when he was talking to department members or animators at the studio during Lion King, and he sold Pocahontas so well and made it seem as though it was Oscar bait that the staff had the choice, work on Lion King or work on Pocahontas. Most people worked on Pocahontas because they thought, well, this is going to be the big one. So right then and there, the movie could have been different. It didn't have to be romantic. And because romance is so essential to this movie, that's why Pocahontas is aged up and John Smith and all that kind of stuff. But if it was something a bit more comedic, something a bit more true to life, they could have kept her 10, 12 years old and had her still be the lead character and still save the day. Kids can save the day.
That's why I kind of made the allusion to Moana, because you've got a young girl whose desires are not romantic desires, but, she also feels the pull. And again, it has the environmental messages. And, again, it's not a perfect film, but I think they balance comedy and peril better than this. I mean, the sidekicks in this, yeah, you've got the pug, the stuck-up pug, which I'm sure you like, the raccoon and the reluctant hummingbird, and they feel like they're just from a different film. It's very difficult. That is a real weakness. It doesn't mesh well at all.
Richard Grant was originally going to play the pug.
Right.
John Candy was going to play a turkey.
Oh, really? A turkey?
Yes. They had speaking roles, but of course, as the movie got more and more streamlined, as happens during production of an animated movie, they kind of focus more and more and whittle the story down. They figured that it'd be better for the animal sidekicks to just not be speaking, which it's so Disney. It's peak Disney. And it's before Disney kind of really, really, really started focusing on the global audience and making sure that every product they released so anarchy free. I like this stuff because we're talking about the movie, which is interesting. But in your opinion, when does it start to go wrong?
Yeah, the first scene.
I'm guessing it's meant to be London, and they're all getting on the ship ready to head towards the new land.
That's the funny thing about the film is you follow them at first. You're going with them to the new world. I don't like them. I don't like what they're doing. I don't want to be with them. And the bad guy, I mean, it's kind of a curious choice. He's going because he's failed everywhere else. He's failing upwards, I suppose, but they don't introduce Mel Gibson very well, I don't think. Even now, I don't know what his character really is. He's not really a hero, but they try and introduce him as though he's, the sort of Robin Hood or something, but he's not particularly charismatic, which I think is weird for a guy who obviously is, for all his faults, quite charismatic. You're introducing the crew. I don't care. For me, having almost like, that famous Trump quote after after January 7th was, there are good guys on both sides. No, no. I'd rather they were straight up bad guys and we'll follow Pocahontas and we'll have Adams as the kind of go-between and they're Romeo and Juliet. But it's as someone in 2024, no thanks.
Listeners, even though Mark and I, we kind of, before we start recording, we just basically touch on a few points. We never really share a lot of notes. So it's with great pleasure that I can say, I so much agree with you, Mark, that I actually timed it. It is 5 minutes and 52 seconds before we are introduced to the Native American tribe. The movie is Pocahontas. It's all about the colonization of America. That's where you start your picture. Hey, if you want to make a movie about John Smith and Pocahontas, then why not cut back and forth, back and forth, back and forth for that entire opening sequence? You show the father and the tribesmen returning, and you show the British colonizers going to America.
There's a podcast I'd recommend called The Rest is History. It's two British historians. They've done Pocahontas, they've done Battle of Little Bighorn and stuff like that. And what they'll do is they'll have an episode on one side of it, then they'll flip over to the other side of it. So they're kind of doing what we see in this film, but it is a very wrong-headed choice. There's the kind of quite well animated troubles they have even getting there, and I don't get it. I don't know what that was all about.
The very first shot that you have of John Smith is it's shooting him from the back, and it's a gun and a sword, and that's what you're telling the audience. And sure, the movie goes a decent length to tell you like he's got no problem shooting indigenous people. So he comes across as this guy, but he's animated as a real hunk of a guy. He's incredibly strong jaw, blonde hair. He's got a big chest on him. You're getting mixed messages. So here's your hero who isn't a good guy, but we're not going to take enough steps to show you he's not a good guy.
They're not going to go the full arc. And that's another problem for me is why does he think it's a bad idea to stop killing Indians? Well, because there is the most fantastically good looking woman anyone's ever seen. Nothing to do with ethics or morals. There's no real scene of him aside from the Beauty of the Wind song. Yeah. There's no real effort to say, why don't you come over and have a look, have a day in our shoes? That doesn't happen. That's kind of where it ends. And I think it's missing a sequence where you can see him developing an empathy, which is surprising because Disney does that all right. And I actually finally watched the second Cameron Avatar movie, which is a real marathon of a film, but he bends over backwards to try and show empathy on both sides. And, look, they're learning about it. There is respect there. They just don't bother in this. It's very surprising, really.
If you're a fan of movies and you watch movies from the 30s, movies from the 40s, every decade or every 2 decades, understandably, the generations change. Filmmakers in the 40s, the way that they told a story, and the filmmakers in the 60s come along like, whoa, no. So I get that it is 1995, and these movies took 3-4 years to make. So even, 1991, it's less about the writing, but more about the film itself. It's very, very telling. We have 3 Native American characters in this movie who sing. We have the lead character of Pocahontas, we have her father, and we have one of the elder tribesmen or from a separate tribe that's kind of his buddy. These are the only 3 indigenous characters who sing in the movie. Now, when they speak, they're actually voiced by Native American actors or actors of color, which, hey, for 1995, not so bad. But when they sing, they become white singers with white voices. You can summarize a lot of the problem about this movie in just that example there. And like you're saying about Moana, this movie stumbled and fell on its face so Moana could run. I mean, even just the credits for this movie, the writers, there's only 1 female writer listed, and none of them are people of color.
Pocahontas in real life did take the time and make the effort to learn English. So why not have that? I find it really confusing why they didn't have that as really part of the romance. And you've got the initial, smack you in the forehead attraction, followed by an attraction that's built up over admiration for this woman connecting to me on my language. As, someone yourself, obviously, we both lived in another country and we both know that feeling of learning another person's language, the kind of beauty in it and the admiration you have when someone's learning your language. Is it there? I mean, I think it's alluded to perhaps, but I got really confused with that as well.
it was funny to have recently watched Shogun. Look, this type of story has been around for centuries. The stranger from a strange land comes into a new village or community, fish out of water, creates havoc, creates war and strife, and falls in love. You mentioned Dances with Wolves. You've mentioned Avatar, Shogun. It's a very classical storytelling hook. I can't fault Pocahontas for wanting to go that route. And yeah, again, it's a movie that was designed for all ages, has to kind of hit the right notes for all ages, which Shogun certainly does not have to do.
How long is the film set over? What period is this? A month, a week? For example, if we're saying it's 3 months, then we can say they have trouble with language at the beginning. Yeah, of course it's got to be in English, but they have trouble with language initially. And we see Pocahontas, as former English teachers, one word, then a simple sentence. That would engender a real connection between them. They just don't bother with it. If you get rid of, as much as we like Billy Connolly, if you get rid of them, then you can do that. You've got the time and the scope to have them sneaking together little language exchange, if you like. That can, and then in the background, maybe really in the background, the settlers getting frustrated and not finding gold. If you want that to be the plot line, that's fine. Yes, it gets the wham, romantic punch at the we both agree that it's done that very well, but there's very little else. When we see them again meeting up, it's like, I want to spend more time with you. Well, why do you? You're not talking to each other really. You seem to argue all the time. You're bickering from the second time you meet. I couldn't really
romance.
Yeah, I felt if you're going to do it, do it. And then that would make the sacrifice at the end, and he would have then inevitably learnt more about her and her background. And then that jump in front of the bullet at the end would have weight. Instead, it just looks like somebody who's found an incredibly attractive woman and wants to do what you want to do with incredibly attractive women.
Oh, right. You mean show her your Metal Gear Solid collection and then proceed to bore her with impersonations of Solid Snake? Colonel, I'm having problems opening the refrigerator. Liquid. Metal Gear. Oh, it's a box. Meryl.
And yes, it's a children's film, I know, but it can still be done with the comedy characters pulling her away, which it does do quite well. And then you can have the comedy sidekick being won over time as well, but it just doesn't do it. It just doesn't do it. And I don't really know why. I said to my wife, why didn't they just set it on Mars? And, you could have told the same story. You could have engendered the same interest. But as you say, it seems like there was a few egos and the glint of an Oscar in the eye, which would only probably come with a film that's based on real events, because we all know those are the films that win Oscars, right?
The co-director, he was trying to develop Swan Lake, and just Disney heads turned him down. And one time at a party, he came across a book on Pocahontas. At a subsequent story pitch meeting, he took an image of Tiger Lily from Peter Pan and wrote Walt Disney's Pocahontas and kind of showed that to the Disney heads. It was apparently the fastest story turnaround in studio history. This period of time, these events, these people, it is quintessentially American. And I knew nothing of this story until I saw this movie as a kid. So good on them for taking something that is uniquely American. That is good. But to our next talking point, aka why do you think they made the story choices they did? Let me just tell you one story. I was at Tokyo Disney Sea years ago, and I was having a great time because Tokyo Disney Sea, it is the best Disney park in the world. I was hanging out, having a beer. You can have that in the park, having a good time. And I looked to my right. There was Pocahontas. The park had brought out, as they do, like Mickey walks around the park or whatever. And they had Pocahontas walking around the park in what I could only assume was Ugg boots. And number one, I was like, wow, holy shit, Pocahontas. That's so rare to have her in the park. Number two, the actress looked like she was having a great time. But then number three, I was like, yo, wait a minute. That's a historical person in a Disney park taking photos and waving and pointing at Mickey t-shirts. So why did they make the choices that they made? Yes, you are completely right. It's the same thing that I came across too. Look, not all of, but a lot of your problems circa 1994, 95 would be done away with if they didn't use Pocahontas and John Smith. If you're in a story meeting and you've got your central plot, guy comes to a new land, falls in love. Her side, his side go to war because it's the Romeo and Juliet of it all. Every single time you fell over backwards to bend the story to what it needs to be should have been a time where people said, is this the right choice? This problem goes away instantly if we just fictionalize this.
And you know, they probably did deserve whatever recognition they wanted, because it was extraordinary what they did. It was extraordinary from Little Mermaid on, you know, it was incredible.
That's right, it's the ad break time. Jumping in here to talk about Momo and Matsu, the director's cut, is available for pre-order on Amazon right now, or through brick and mortar bookshops. You can pre-order it there too. Wait, maybe you're listening to this episode in the future. Well, in that case, it's available to purchase right now. Also, future person, do they keep making Ghostbuster movies? It's a complete novel, none of this 100-page, barely a story pumped out by ChatGPT crap. All for less than the price of a loaf of bread. Wait, that's a boomer reference if ever there was one. Actually, how much is a loaf of bread in America right now? New Zealand, it's like $4 to $5. Right? As much as I love bread, it's not really on brand for me, is it? I got it. Pizza. There we go. Gotcha. Okay. Hey Siri. How much is a large pizza in America?
Okay, I found this on the web for how much is a large pizza in America. Check it out.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
$8 to $10? I'm not charging that much. Okay, wait. How much for a single slice of pizza? $3 to $4 on the East Coast? How much for a Chicago deep dish? Anyway, there we go. For less than a slice of a pizza, you can buy my book. Or for around the cost of a whole damn pizza, you can buy the paperback. Hardcover is a little more pricey, but man, is it pretty. Momo and Matsu, the Ghibli-esque, heartwarming tale of a friendship between an old man and a teenage girl who happens to be dead. What the hell? I hear you shout. Well, type Bradley Freeman and Momo and Matsu into that search bar of yours and go check out the book for yourself. Cheaper than pizza, and hopefully just as satisfying. Okie dokie, back to the show.
Does the movie try to add anything to the genre or template? So I guess the Disney of it all, does it try to add something new? And I would argue it really does. It did, in its own way, swing for the fences, but it seems to have been blind about which fences to swing for.
Yeah, I'd agree. Like I said, the people I watched it with are both Americans, and they were hating on it. But if you look at it, no Native American slur intended, it is quite a brave film. I read a review from a Native American who obviously wasn't happy about it, you know, stereotype. You can see why. But no, I think that's one of the, you know, when we think about the categories of this podcast, that's one category where, yeah, I didn't have a great deal. Well, I've got negative things to say, but yeah, it does try. It is pushing it, and it's got the mandatory songs, but as you alluded to at the very beginning, are well written.
And some of the lyric, you can own the earth, but all you own is earth until
One of the issues is that those lyrics just bounce off his head. Sorry, John Smith, sorry. I wanted to see him engaging with those lyrics. Like, that song ends and it's right off, we're back to Billy Connolly or whatever. So you kind of done the hard work, just refused for whatever reason. And again, if we go to the end of the film, it massively lessens to me anyway, the impact of the end of it. You've got the two gangs with the torches, you know, marching towards each other, and it gets the blood going, but it feels hollow. The Native American love interest or intended marriage person, and they have to say about 12 times, oh, he's so serious. And when he gets killed, it means nothing, because you've not done anything with that character. Is it Malvolio in Romeo and Juliet? It's exactly the same, isn't it? It's literally the same thing that triggers the end. It's the best friend character that comes in and then is killed by Romeo, of course, but they don't do that. They have that young, whatever he's supposed to be character. But it's very, very, very similar. But again, I don't think there's enough has been done for us to really believe in that ending beyond purely romance. Do you see what I mean?
The less romance there is makes Pocahontas even stronger.
How do you feel about the very end of the film? There's this big standoff between the two sides, and finally an attempt is made on the life of the chief, and our quote unquote hero jumps in front of the bullet. And then, right, we're gonna have to patch him up. Well, we can't do it here. Let's all go back. Like, it's a bizarre ending, really. And you've got her doing the wave on the. Have you ever seen a Disney film end like that? Like, quite bizarre ending.
Historically, no, he wasn't shot. There was a gunpowder explosion, which apparently had nothing to do with the native tribesmen. Oh, I was having one too many drinks and boom, there goes my kidney.
Actually, it's funny, I'd forgotten that's how it ends. Because I've seen Pocahontas 2 more recently, I thought, oh, I misremembered. I thought she goes with them.
Hey, wait up! Wait for me! I've changed my mind! This place sucks! There's some stinking raccoon and don't get me started on the hummingbirds! Jesus Christ!
Yeah, I kind of expected her to jump in the water and swim after the boat. Again, you've set her up as she does want more from this provincial life or whatever, that trope. But why does she realize she has to stay?
Yes.
I don't know if I just tuned out at that point, but
she looks at her people and we're to infer. It would be wonderful if the script, of course, she has changed her father's point of view, but why not have a bit more where like she looks and sees, oh no, some of the colonists are still holding their guns a little too tight. Some of the tribes people are also looking with blood in their eyes. Have something where she knows this is the work that only I can do. And sorry, John, you're not good enough. What scenes or script changes would make it better?
Yes, you've built up their relationship over he understands her way of life. Thing is, she doesn't know shit about what the settlers are doing, does she? She doesn't know shit.
No.
She's too busy stalking, making googly eyes at him. So for her to make that stand at the end, well, it's not earned. It doesn't make sense. That's why I'm saying if you'd have pushed them to the side, focused on their getting to know each other culturally as well as romantically.
Presumably in real life, Pocahontas was encouraged to mix with the Jamestown camp to, I guess, engender communication, but also to secure weapons and everything. So she would be sent in there as an envoy, I'm guessing with some other people. But 3 boys from the colony were sent to live with the Native Americans. Thomas, Henry, and Robert were sent to live with the tribe, translating and negotiating. There is a story right there. These boys, in terms of what researchers can find, they can't quite find much information on them. So they were basically little more than, I suppose, cattle. They were fodder. There's your story. As Pocahontas learns more about Western ways and or falls in love with whoever, why not have a B story where you've got trimmed down the 3 boys to 1 and have them become more Native American? Because right now in the movie, you've got the pug. The pug makes the change.
The pug does,
The pug does it, which, hey, kids movie, all right, fine, whatever. That would be fascinating. I would really have liked to have seen that. And then, of course, as we talked about, just base it off your fictional people. And that way you can still have milquetoast white boy and gorgeous Native American girl doing all the things. And the story beats can remain somewhat the same.
The villain is the worst villain in Disney animated history. I can't think of one less memorable, less interesting. I don't know what they were going for. Again, they probably were going for, I am certain there were a lot of people of that particular class who were doing very similar things.
He is after gold. He believes the Americas is full of gold, and I must have this gold, and these savages must be destroyed. So obviously they created this hunt for gold out of thin air.
Yeah.
And his hunger for gold is what drives the colonists. You get that wonderful bit from Pocahontas where she says, gold? Oh, what's that? We've got none of that here. Do you think that was a good enough motive? Couldn't the bad guy have just been a real nasty racist?
Yeah, I think you could still have had him running away from his shame. You don't need the gold, just running away from his shame and trying to establish a successful colony that could then impress his... I mean, again, though, this is the issue. We keep going back to it. You're making a children or a kids film, so gold is a very easy, tangible thing to understand. It's greedy, plays into the sort of British stereotypes quite well. You know what I mean? Really, he shouldn't be there. You just have the getting to know you of 2 different cultures, and that's enough, really. There's no Disney film of that era that doesn't have the scenery chewing bad guy, is there? I mean, that's just... Moana doesn't have a bad guy, does it?
Well, in a way, Maui's the bad guy.
That's Maui is, but he's the the Loki.
And that's a wonderful thing for Disney to have its cake and eat it too. You've got this big, massive Titan. Is it Taka, the bad guy? And then turns out, oh no, she was good the entire time because Maui was an idiot. Disney have really learned from the Pocahontas of it all, which is why you've got films like Moana, you've got these, or even Raya and the Last Dragon, which is all about these two women fighting constantly throughout the movie.
Very underrated. Very underrated.
Yeah.
It's a good little film, that, actually.
I would have liked if John Smith had really fucked up. Let's say if the bad guy was removed, Ratcliffe was removed, Gold was removed, and John Smith, he was either lying to Pocahontas or just he didn't know the truth about the colonists. He was a dumbass. But either way, he makes a choice at the midway point of the movie to side with the colonists or to knock down some, like an Avatar, knock down the tree of life or whatever. He does something irreparably bad, and that causes the indigenous tribes people to arrest him, and Pocahontas has to make the choice to save him, but she saves him not out of love, but just because killing is not going to be the right choice.
I think that would be a much better way of putting the sensibilities of 2024 into a film like that. Yeah, definitely.
My sons are 3 and 5 years old, and they're just starting to come across movies now where the bad guys of these kids' movies, sometimes at the halfway point, the bad guy becomes a good guy. And it's amazing watching them trying to rack their brains around that. And they look at me and they ask me questions afterwards, like, but he was a bad guy. Yeah, but then this happened and this happened, and the bad guy had a good think and changed their mind. And that they find that very exciting right now, that a bad guy can switch. I haven't shown them things where a good guy switches yet, because I don't want to just, bring that on them just yet. But yeah, I mean, I think there is, even for 1995, a safe, smooth down edges way of having John Smith make a big mistake. And that throws everything out of balance. And then, Pocahontas has to make the choice to save his life for the good of both colonies, the good of both people.
Yeah, because he's the hero in her story in the 93 version, and he hasn't earned it. There's nothing really about him that's heroic at all. So it feels very cheap to let him get away with the glory, so to speak. And that, again, I don't like that about the ending either.
When the father comes and calls him brother, it is entirely unearned.
That's an abomination. Why? Why are you saying that now?
Give that character a reason, because that would be a seismic moment if that man calls him brother, and if it was earned,
absolutely.
Oh, that would be. I mean, John Smith could die happy just from that alone. And that brother for a Disney movie would infer to the audience that everything is gonna be all right with this part of this land.
Yeah, and it can end with John Smith just giving him the polio blanket and say, "Here you are, keep warm." And then he can look to the camera, can't he? And it just be like hard cut. See, there are ways of doing it. No, but you're the polio blanket. Crash zoom.
Wait. So it's like cut to Smash Mouth's All Star. Somebody told me, or like the Linkin Park Michael Bay credit, like directed by Michael Bay. Polio blanket in the face. Yeah!
I think that's what I was saying at the beginning, and that's what I felt is an interesting ending, really not earned. And again, your initial attraction to the film was the attraction between the two. And it is true. It does have sweeping romantic. And we both said it, and I would applaud it for that. But doesn't mean anything in terms of the overarching story and what's learned and the progression of the characters, that there's none. And it's a shame. Exactly. But again, it wouldn't be done like that now. And we'll probably have to say this a lot for these slightly older films, that I'm really hoping we'll do Ghostbusters 2 at some point. I'm going to start the campaign for Ghostbusters 2, a film that I hear maligned all the time and I don't understand it.
I love it as well. I think it's a fantastic film, but again, biased because it's me and Ghostbusters.
But that's why I think it should be analysed, because it's a film that we both connected to at a certain age and point in our lives. And I think it would be interesting examining it in the same way we're examining Pocahontas now.
We're going to have to get to the point where eventually we discuss movies that you genuinely love, but are unfortunately, unavoidably in terms of the global opinion. Same
Yeah,
thing
and that's
for me.
one of
Like,
them.
listeners, it's very important to note right now in the second episode that I am a diehard Spielberg fan. And unfortunately, there'll be times when we'll have to cover a Spielberg episode and I'll be inconsolable, but I'll get through it.
Which one? I was thinking about that earlier. Anything from the last 10 films probably wouldn't be that interesting, but there's and I was actually thinking about Jaws 2 as well. That's another one. I quite like Jaws 2.
I love Jaws 2 as well. Jaws 2 has no business being as good as
Yeah.
it is. Anyway, that is it for Pocahontas. Did you agree with what we said? Did you hate what we said? Either way, let us know. The point of this podcast is to talk about average movies that could have made it with some few tweaks. And I think Pocahontas isn't an outrageously terrible movie,
no.
as we've talked about. It does what it tries to do, but just a few changes would really make this more accessible. But next episode,
Oh God.
our next episode is an unredeemable piece of shit.
Yeah.
God damn it. The fact that I've seen this movie before and I'm going to have to watch it again and prep for this podcast. So that is twice I would have seen this stagnant, festering piece of shit. How many times have you seen this movie?
Once. I just saw that there's a director's cut of Rebel Moon coming out. Have you seen that? He's going to have a director's cut. I thought that was the whole point of you going on Netflix, that everything you do now is a director's cut.
The whole thing with Rebel Moon is that, he made it. Who gives a fuck?
Many thanks to my buddy, my co-host Mark Tasker, for joining me on yet another episode of Written Off. Listeners, mates, buddies, you can find us on Instagram at Written Off Pod. Throw us a comment, let us know what you think, maybe suggest another movie. Although, fair warning, there's only so much banal viewing Mark can take. Seriously, he's got like this limit, and when he exceeds that limit, I mean, I'm in New Zealand, I can hear his bellowing, his whining, his moaning all the way from England. In our next episode, look, as we've said before in episode 0, we never, ever, ever want to be bullies about anything. There's always some positive to be gleaned from a movie, but this is really pushing it. You can find me on Instagram and Threads at Brad is Writing, and you cannot find Mark because he loathes all of social media. Until our next episode, stay safe out there. Go grab a slice of pizza, and we'll catch you for the next one. Bye-bye. Written Off is hosted by me, Bradley Freeman, and Mark Tasker. It's produced by the both of us, and it's edited by me. Our theme music is by Skane, and our artwork is by Sketchfro. This has been a Pugnacious Podcast production.